everyone, today's topic is Chinese banks. Are they any good? And how do they compare to Western banks and other banks in the world? Well, let's get this started. I think from my perspective, the banks here are incredibly good and incredibly bad at the same time. And let me explain what do I mean. The number one really good thing about banks here in China is they don't overcharge you, like with interest rates and with loans. And if you compare them to Western banks, China has way better interest rates, number one. And number two thing which is better about banks in China is they don't like charge you so many fees. But when you go to a Western country, like when you want to withdraw money from your ATM, they're going to charge you a fee. When you send money abroad, they're going to charge you a big fee. But in China, when you send money abroad to an outside of China, they charge you around $30, 30, 32. Whereas in the US, Europe, they're going to charge you around 50, 60. So you can see what I mean by that the Chinese banks are better. Now, what are the negatives, the bad things about Chinese banks? Well, the first negative thing about Chinese banks is their technology is way behind. Even though technology in China in certain realms are like world class, in other realms they're really bad, or in other like industries. And the banking industry, unfortunately, when it comes to online banking and blah blah blah, you're gonna have a very bad experience. That's number one. Another bad thing about banks here is the banking regulations keeps changing, so it's not stable. One time it's like this, tomorrow it's like this. There's no consistency. Whereas in the West and in many parts of the world, in the Middle East as well, there's consistent rules, right? Of course, rules change from time to time, but in general, you can expect things to always run smoothly in the same way. What else? Yeah, another negative thing about banks here is that, sometimes they don't have the experience that other banks in the world have. So now they're starting to deal with foreigners in the last couple of years. But before that, they were not used to dealing with outside banks and the outside world outside of China. So everything was limited in scope from a financial standpoint, Anyways, I was in a bank. I went to the main bank in China, and I wanted to check out the clips that I recorded, just so you can get an idea of how banks look like and get a feel of how it is. Here you got the Bank of China, the most famous bank, and it's like the central bank, and they have the most branches compared to any other bank. And most people or foreigners have bank accounts in this bank, even Chinese as well. Okay, one thing to keep note here is that like the majority of banks are funded by the government. They're not private. So in this section of the bank, it's like the teller section, and I was waiting my turn to exchange some money.